We ought to get started. We're at 4
Okay,
minutes past, and we got almost 40 people in here, so I think I'm going to get started.
great.
First and foremost, welcome. You know, when we started this concept, this idea, we didn't know that we were going to get really the response that we've all been getting, and the responses have been really great. The only negative response was once for my poor internet, and I was all pixelated. But other than that, the exposure and the ability to see and talk to these people has been really, really phenomenal. And I was very fortunate they let me sort of handpick some of the people I wanted to talk to most, and some of not just friends, but people that I care a lot about, and I respect what they do. And certainly tonight's guest is no different. JVS and I met a number of years ago in London, and I remember I'd seen your work quite a bit a couple of years prior to that, but we hadn't really met until we were in London at the same time we were on a judging panel together. And I remember thinking, where did this guy come from? He's a great judge. And I kept thinking, man, this guy's good. And then I saw the results of the print competition, and you kind of killed everybody over there that year. And then I thought, okay, I gotta get to know this guy. And it's funny. It's fun because you more so than a lot of people, you have such a passion as an image maker. You have drive and ambition and passion about you. It doesn't matter if you're shooting a wedding or an advertising piece or a food shoot for an editorial magazine support image. You have just a crazy, crazy passion. What is that about? Where'd that come from?
Yeah, I really don't know. It's, all this photography started, gosh, over 30 years ago, in high school, just playing around with the camera, photographing friends that were skateboarders. Gosh, even back then, we're talking like 86, 87, 88. Some of the people that I would go skate with were like already using off-camera flash, and they were using long TTL cords, like on Vivitar 283s and 285s. And I used to think,
blue
wow,
F8.
Yeah, like why is the flash way over there? And then I saw the results, and it was just, something that kind of hooked on me. And it's literally almost 25 years later, still doing the same thing, still as excited as I was before. Just doing things a little bit differently now. I'm down here on the Gulf of Mexico, right near Rosemary Beach, Florida. So if I moved the V flats away from the wall over here, I could look out into some palm trees, and then probably about a half mile away is the actual Gulf of Mexico. So yeah, I went from New York to Kentucky to Dallas to DC, and then here to Florida. But yeah, it's something. Photography has always been something that gets me up every morning and gets me excited because I think it's kind of our job to provide a visual history for our clients. And and when you're as excited to book the client as you are excited to work with them and shoot with them and deliver the images, it's just a really fun, repetitive cycle, and it hasn't gotten old yet.
It's funny. You remind me a little bit like I was always a big fan of Neil Peart from Rush, the drummer from Rush, and he made the comment one time that once you know what it is that you're supposed to do, you've got to go do that thing. Even on days you don't want to go do that thing, you've got to go do that thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny how a lot of musicians make statements and say things that relate to us. Graham Nash was always saying, it's our responsibility as musicians to not waste anybody's time. And I thought, well, that's an interesting statement, and we as photographers ought to take that on board. Let's find a way to do it right and work hard and get these pictures, and let's not waste anybody's time. Were you inspired by anybody at that early on that stage?
Early on, gosh, I'd say like Patrick Demachier, sure. Jay Mizell. In high school, we didn't have access to the way we can look at images today.
Yeah.
So it required like a trip to the library, or the Wall Street Journal Sunday Magazine, or the New York Times Sunday Magazine, or Harper's Bazaar, or you had to physically go pick up tangible products to look at the photography. So
yeah,
it was much harder. I mean, when I was younger, I didn't pay too much attention to the names. 18, through about 25 because my focus was on, documentary photography and photojournalism. So, I wanted to be the next.
And you studied that in New York when you got to New York, right?
Yeah, so I studied commercial photography at the School of Visual Arts for a brief stint. Yeah, and then I went to Western Kentucky University and studied photojournalism. But at that point, I wanted to pretty much travel the world and shoot global stories. So like the names that I followed were Anthony Swa and Christopher Morris and James Noxtaway and Sebastião Salgado and people like that. So it wasn't until a few years later, while I was doing work for the newspaper, that I really started using more and more light. And that's back in like the Yahoo days. So before you Googled, you actually Yahooed. So I'd get on Yahoo and look for pictures and try to dissect, how things were done. And there wasn't YouTube yet or anything like that. So a lot of it was, we would call it testing. You go to the local modeling agency, say, hey, no one's paying for anything. Maybe we bring in a hair and makeup artist and stylist. But the goal, this is for all of us to just try something different. If the outcome works, it does. If not, we try again. So it's lots and lots of trial and error. But now, my gosh, I can get online right now. I can search just about anything and get 10,000 results in a video on exactly how to light it. So learned a little bit of the hard way, but at least now I know, when I put a light somewhere with a certain modifier, I know exactly what it's going to do.
Yeah.
The trial and error is kind of gone. So it's a little actually easier.
But you also, more than a lot of people that have come from that arena of reportage or documentary work, you've really dug your heels in and learned your lighting, and you've learned it as well or better than most, for sure. And that's the thing that stands out in some of the work of yours that I've seen. Some of those black and white headshots of guys, of men more than women, are strikingly well lit and lit in unusual ways. Where I'm a lighting guy and I'm scratching my head going, wait a minute, you can't do that. And yet you did and pulled it off. So yeah, somehow. So you got out of school at SVA, and somewhere along the way there, I guess shortly after that, you ended up in Dallas at the Morning News. Yeah,
so I did SVA for a short period, and then I actually went to Kentucky for a few years to study photojournalism, and then I went to Dallas on an internship at the Dallas Morning News, and not even a month and 2 weeks into the internship, a good longtime friend, John Davison, pretty much promised me the next opening. And I took that job. I was really young. I remember very, very clearly the day I started, because there was the terrible tragedy in Oklahoma City the day I started.
Yeah.
So I got to the photo department and no one was there. They were all driving north to Oklahoma because of the bombing. So I started back in March of 1995 or so. At the Dallas Morning News, spent a bunch of time there. Photographed the Olympics in Nagano, World Series, Dallas Cowboys, Stanley Cups, all that fun stuff. At the same time, just shooting daily work too. There was Pet of the Week. There still is Pet of the Week. So you never knew actually what you were going to get assigned. So it was kind of fun because there was a point when I almost felt like assignments were merit based. So you were only as good as your last shot. So if you did really great on this one, you actually might get a better assignment. They might
call you. Yeah. There was George W. Bush had one of his favorite photographers was at the Morning News. He was an Asian kid, really, really talented guy, Michael Yang or Chang or something. Really, really good guy. And yeah, but there's a lot. That's one of those papers, kind of like, it's kind of like in the Oregonian and the Detroit Free Press, and some of these papers that came out turned out great photographers.
There are a lot of. I mean, there are tons of small town papers out there that are creating amazing community journalism too. But we always think of like the Washington Post and the New York Times, the LA Times, but there's all these small papers throughout Michigan. They're just amazing photo papers. Yeah. So there are lots of small town photographers out there that are still kicking ass that we don't know about, but they're out there doing great work.
They're not first name basis with everybody yet,
but they're doing great work. Yeah,
but they're doing great work. Wow. So how long were you in New York before you left there? You were 3-4 years?
No, it's just not even a few months. I realized that I really wanted to study journalism. Yeah, it was a big culture shock going from like New York to Bowling Green, Kentucky. I'm sure. But I sold my car. I bought a bunch of brand new EOS gear. EOS had just came out So, it was back at the EOS one, and that was, gosh,
one.
that was so many years ago. It's not even funny. Little tank. But yeah, so I really went down there, put my nose down, and really focused on just becoming a better storyteller. And Western is still one of the best, PJ programs in the country. And, a lot of lifelong friends that have come through there who've gone on to be directors of photography at Wired, and, friends that are, directing national TV campaigns now and things like that. But I never thought I would go to this really small, it's not rural, it's a pretty populated town in Kentucky. But it was some of the best years of my life.
It's funny you said storyteller. It's funny that I've heard McNally say that. Joe McNally, who you and I have talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
We have such respect for the work. It's just the work and the work ethic. And Joe always plies himself by saying, I'm not a commercial guy. I'm not a portrait photographer. I'm not an editor. I'm just a photographer. I'm a storyteller mostly. I'm just a storyteller. And boy, he tells stories well with his camera. And I think that's something that we all, everybody finds their own way and their own niche. But somewhere along the way, you figure out, okay, this is what I want to do, not that. If you're not good with children, get them off your website and stop telling everybody you want to do children, because you don't.
Yeah.
Do the stuff that you want to do, and people will seek you out and find you for that work. So in the mix somewhere, I've met your darling wife, Candace, who's so cute and so fun. And she went the direction of portrait. And specifically, I think she does a lot of families. And it seems like that your business is kind of divided up, and it sounds very familiar to my world. But so she's heads toward the portrait area. You're editorial, commercial, advertising.
Yeah. So, it's fairly accurate. So, Candace is wildly successful. She was successful long before I met her, long before we got together. She's built up a household name here it's called 30A. It's the scenic highway that runs along the Gulf of Mexico. But yeah, she's her work ethic is unbelievable. She's actually shooting right now. She works with about 100 or 125 families a year, where she actually photographs them at sunset, culls, converts, and then sells to that family the next morning. So really, really organized workflow. So on the portrait side, I handle the whole client experience for her. I do intake, I do pre-qualify all the clients, get the clients booked, contracts, retouching, things like that. And then she also helps me with doing commercial and advertising and magazine work, with styling and set building. And so we're actually a really good team. And occasionally, I do shoot a few families, on the beach when we have to, when we need to double book an event or something like that. But for the most part, she does families. She does a lot of seniors too. She does a really great job at seniors down here. And I help her in here in the studio. We generally start with something cool, calm, relaxed, in a controlled, air-conditioned environment, where I do the lighting for her, or I do the tech work, and she does all the shooting. And on the flip side too, when I'm shooting in the studio with maybe a commercial client, she's actually running the tech, or she's the digital tech. She's watching.
So are you much of the stuff in the studio? Are y'all shooting tethered?
Oh yeah, we're always tethered. We're always tethered into Capture One.
Capture One, yeah, same with me.
So that way, we actually can go in and design a recipe. So everything that comes in gets that applied recipe, so we would know exactly what we're looking for. And it's actually a really fun process and a collaboration, because sometimes if the camera's locked down, let's say for a food shoot or a still life shoot, it doesn't matter who clicks the capture button.
Sure.
It's a team event on it. She'll do adjustments, I'll do adjustments, and then somebody fires the camera.
We see that around town too. We're in a small community now that Mandy and I've remarried and moved to. I met Mandy and relocated here in Oklahoma from 28 years in San Diego. I'm in culture shock still, but I've been here for now, a few years, 6-7 years. But it's the same thing around this little community of 40,000. Everybody knows us for what it is. I mean, we're the ones that everybody calls. Mm-hmm. If you need the commercial work, then I usually get the call, or if it's the portrait, it's her. But when we go out to dinner, we show up someplace, everybody knows, oh, that's those photographers over there. It's kind of a cool thing. Little communities.
Yeah, so we're in a destination market, so Candace has a really big, loyal, deep client base that comes back year after year. But for the most part, we're seeing new clients, and Florida's been open for a very long time. So we've been this is probably the busiest we've actually ever been.
Yeah.
I was telling you earlier, we're 20 shoots over last year to date, and we still haven't even booked out the fall yet. So, it's a lot of hustle, a lot of work. I don't try to think too much about the production schedule, because there's a little bit of work ahead of me. and there's constantly bookings coming in. I mean, we booked 2 weddings in the past 48 hours. We booked 4 portraits in the past 48 hours. So it's, we just keep tallies, where were we last year? Where are we now? What were the numbers for this day last year? What are the numbers today? And it's just, as long as we keep a basic grip on what's going on and try to push a little harder, slowly get ahead and ahead and ahead. I didn't actually think we'd be this far ahead on August 3rd, because we're pretty much at year's close this time last year with the same amount of bookings and same amount of income and things like that. But yeah, so people, were kind of asking me like, if you want to work, where do you go to Texas or Florida?
How are you doing that?
Yeah, you go to Texas or Florida
or Oklahoma. We're up 40,
Oklahoma,
almost 45%.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's, again, business has been really good. We've been really fortunate. But yeah, life is good right now.
Yeah. Good. So, let me just changing gears a little bit. There's such, for new people to the market, they just want to take pictures. They want to get behind the camera. They don't know. Of course, none of us knew what we didn't know when we started this. We all flew by the seat of our pants, and we just, one of my mentors, Dean Collins, who I miss so much. Dean one time said, "Listen, anybody can do this. You just need a roll of duct tape and a business card. You can rent everything else. Get some gaffer tape and a good card." But we know that, certainly in the world that you're working in, and we'll dig into the food here in a second too. But in the commercial editorial world, there is a certain amount of repeat business, because there is a certain amount of clients in regional magazines and state magazines and things like that, and publications that will come back over and over. What is it about you? I mean, what is it about you that makes these clients keep coming back? You've got to have a handle on something you're doing right. Is it is it the styling or the look that you have, or what you bring, professionalism? What is it across the board, do you think?
10 years ago, I had a client tell me that they couldn't believe how crisp, colorful, and sharp my images were. And I thought, well, okay, I'll take that as a compliment. But what I realized is that shooting clean is the hardest thing in the world to do. You could put a crazy spin or a crazy filter or a crazy lighting diagram on something, but to shoot really clean and really sharp and deliver a beautiful file to the client is my goal. So I've never really deviated off on any trends or any wacky post-processing or anything that might date my work. But I think it's mainly just consistency. The light is good, the light is clean. Things are delivered. I use a professional retoucher. Things are delivered completely finished. And we have a local magazine here called Walton that a good friend of ours started publishing, that we shoot for, probably 80 times a year. And it's, it's really good, clean, it's conceptual. So, everything I say is me and Candace too. So she's a huge part in every one of these shoots. We were just in Perdido Beach, I think that's what it's called, somewhere near Gulf Shores near Alabama. We did a food shoot for a restaurant who had a new menu, and they hired us because of how bright and vibrant and how sharp they thought our food pictures were. So I don't know what else is being delivered out there, but I'm always surprised when I hear that people are excited about good, clean, colorful photography. So we keep it really simple, generally, one light, some fill cards, maybe another little kicker light here or there. But the production value too is always very streamlined. It's very clean. Moving blankets go down on the floor. Gear gets offloaded very carefully.
Sure.
Everything's on a tether. Everything's client approved. They can walk over at any time and see the live feed. So even when we had a remote client this year, it was a children's undergarment company that's based up in New Hampshire, and we went live for them on Zoom while we shot the 2 kids here in the studio, and it was just something new for them. But I brought something new to the studio for us, that we could actually have a client that could be 10,000 miles away or 10 miles away around the corner, and still have them be a part of the shoot, see how things were going. Right. But I think at the end of the day, we get hired over and over just because how clean and consistent the images are.
You know, that it's funny that you say that. Not a lot of people talk like that. My good friend Russ Harrington in Nashville shoots a lot of musicians and 600-700 album covers or something,
Wow.
and he says the same thing. He says the work comes because they think that I shoot nice and bright and sharp and clean, and I guess we do sort of take for granted sometimes that, golly, somehow not everybody's doing that. I don't know. I don't know why they aren't. I don't know what they're missing, but.
Yeah, I don't know either, but it doesn't take a ton of effort. It just takes, just slowing down a little bit, coming up with a shot list, or, you physically print out the shot list. Like even, I did a couple headshots last week. I'll still go to Pinterest and pull poses, and I'll print them out and I'll, attach them to the highlighter, to the light stand, and I'll tell the subject, hey, this is what we're going to go for here. We're going to take us, take our time. We're going to warm you up for a little bit with the lights. It's mainly a beauty dish, a fill light, or a reflector. Nothing too elaborate. And then they actually pick their images, right after the shoot too. So they sit down and they 5-star their pictures and can capture one, so they can actually see, oh wow, okay, this is what I was thinking. Oh, this is actually how it turned out. So I think just being organized and knowing your gear inside out and not fumbling. And I think if you if you're really confident in what you do, and every part of what you do, from the time you walk into the shoot to breaking out your gear and setting it up and being positive and delivering that first really nice image, it just keeps everybody happy and everybody positive. We did 20 shots at that restaurant a few months ago in one day, and it was pretty quick. But when we delivered the final images, when they were retouched, they were just a beautiful library of images from them. I know we'll be back. The owner owns an ice cream and a candy store out there, so hopefully we get hired to do that. That should be super cool. Yeah, there'll definitely be more work.
When you've done it well too. I mean, the clients will tell you, of course, they're pretty good at that stuff. But also, I mean, we did a series of headshots recently, and unbeknownst to us, the client had used somebody else and was unhappy across the board, and our bid was a little higher than the other person's where they were. Didn't matter. Mm-hmm. What we didn't know was he had this bad experience, and he says, it's not what we're after. So you never know, so, I got so many things to talk to you about. And I know we don't have we can't stay here all night, but
sure.
Excuse me. One of the things is, I want to talk a little bit about equipment, of course. I need to dig into that. Yep. It seems like, you and I have had lots of conversations about ProPhoto. We both are ProPhoto users. I assume you're still a ProPhoto user.
Absolutely. Yep.
I can't go to work without B10s. If they're not in the bag, I got to stop and turn around and go find my B10s, because it's just like, there's something about that light that has changed how I see and think, and the things that I'm capable of doing that I've not been able to do for 35 years, And so for me, it's a big stinking deal. What is it about ProPhoto that you've always been gravitating towards?
So, I started using it back, like rental gear, back when it was Pro 5, Pro 6,
sure.
Pro 7. And then probably back in early 2000s, I picked up a couple 7Bs, which were the 1200 watt batteries with the big handles. I used to fly all over the world for editorial work with those. And those are now the B10 Plus. It's amazing that, granted, that one was 1200 watts and these are 500. But B10 Plus is go-to lights. Two of these are actually lighting this. There's a 1x1 grid and softbox right here, and there's a medium umbrella with the diffuser on the second one back there. I'm actually using the modeling lights plugged in to light this. But yeah, I definitely would say, like, for food and stuff, I use lots of A1s. I have 6 A1s. I can put them exactly where I need them to be on little arms and grids or double grids, and they can go exactly where they need to be to pin spot or highlight. But main lights are always like B10 Plus, 2 of those, as well as a pair of B1s in the studio. I think eventually we'll go to a D2 system. I mean, the Pro 11 looks amazing. I just don't know if I'd get enough use out of it to make that huge of an investment.
Yeah.
But the B10 Plus, part of me thinks I'd like to use just the B10. It's a little smaller, because I very rarely are using these B10 Pluses at full power.
Right.
But it's good to know that I have that much power when I need it.
Yeah, it's a lot of that's about recycle time. And if you're shooting in a situation where you've got to have that recycle time, if you'll double the power, you'll cut the recycle time in half. So
True.
depending on what you got to do. And
Yeah.
what about cameras? Let's talk about cameras.
Yeah. So right now we're shooting all R5s,
Okay.
from Canon, all the new RF lenses, 24 to 70s, the 85-1.2, the 70-200s.
Sure.
Oh gosh, almost a year ago, I started running the Fuji GFX system for some bigger commercial jobs when I knew we needed ridiculous amounts of pixels for big print and things like that. It worked great. I heard you talking about that. The 100 now sounds like an amazing camera. But for what we're doing right now, the R5 has been a great camera. It's like the sharpest thing that Canon's ever put out. It's I don't second guess anything. They're good, solid cameras. I think eventually, occasionally I've dabbled in, I shot Hasselblad medium format for years. There's a H4D40 sitting in the closet there somewhere in a Pelican case. I haven't shot it in ages, mainly because of how much easier it is to work with the R5.
Yeah.
The tether is so much easier. The files are easy to manage, and it's just a much newer technology. I bought that H4D, gosh, in 2011 or something like that.
Well, are there specific lenses that you find yourself just absolutely not going to perform without?
Yeah. So the 24 to 70 is probably a go-to lens. Yeah. It is a great lens overhead on a tripod for food. The 85-1.2 is great for in studio headshots. I used to shoot with a bunch of primes, and what I found is that they are all so damn sharp now that I don't feel the need to carry a bunch of glass. So 24 to 70, 85, 70-200 would be go-to lenses.
Yeah, I remember back in the 90s, even the late 80s and early 90s. Well, if you were using zoom lenses, people would put turn their nose up to you because
I remember
prime. We are only prime,
Yeah.
And now those same people are all using, they've got 2 zooms in their bag and that's it.
Yeah.
Instead of 12 lenses.
I used to have a backpack full of primes from the fastest glass made from Canon, and just rows of this glass.
And now you've got 2 slots in your bag; they fit in.
Yeah, I'm good to go. And the RF stuff is so small and so lightweight now.
Well, that's the thing too, isn't it? With the travel, the amount of travel that you've done and that I still do quite a bit, going down to the mirrorless world and just lightening up my whole world with just weight. I think has probably added years to my career.
Yeah, generally when I pack our 2 kits and I roll them out in these 4-wheel, they're called roller derbies from Think Tank Photo. I often have to literally every time we go to shoot, I load the rollers into the back of our car, and before I leave, I pop it and check it because the rollers are so light.
Yeah.
That I make sure there's 4 bodies. What
lenses. Am I missing here? Yeah.
CF cars. Why are these rollers so
That's
light?
Funny.
And years past, I travel a lot. I could barely get the roller over my head into the overhead.
Wow. So, just thinking about where you came from, where you are currently, and I'll mention this because I've got a food shoot tomorrow. I've got to photograph 7 cupcakes, custom cupcakes, and a custom cake thing for tomorrow for a stupid thing, but. The fact is, the directions that we go, and the directions that we all and all of us, we all kind of veer a little down our path, and we wobble a little left and right, but we kind of go the same direction. Is there anything? Is there an avenue or an arena that is left for you that you haven't gone down? That in the back of your mind, you're thinking, one of these days I want to do more fashion catalogs, or is there more of this, or is there anything that you haven't done enough of yet that you're wanting to do more of?
No, not really. I'm at a different point in my life now. I'm 48. I have a 3.5-year-old daughter.
No, you're.
So it's. I'm excited to get up at 6 a.m. and make her lunch and get her up and breakfast and get her dressed and fix her hair and take her to school and then pick her up at 3:30. So much different priorities than, let's say, 10 years ago. No, I think right now I just want to keep the studio at its same operating level or above each and every year with 20 or 30% growth every year. Hopefully bring on some employees next year to help with more business, more shooting, more sales. But no, I've shot a lot. Been very fortunate to shoot lots of things under the sun all over the globe. And
Is there anything that intimidates you? Anything that you think, man, I got to conquer that one thing? Or is there anything like that?
Yeah, not now in life, and earlier in life, I really wanted a Pulitzer Prize. Like, I was a finalist for the Pulitzer in '97, and that's probably as close as I was ever going to get. So, I kind of hung that up. But as far as like chasing things or wanting to do things differently, no, I think I'm like, you know, a good friend of mine, Ben Chrisman, always talks about like, climbing a ladder or getting to the top of a mountain, and there's actually never a top rung on the ladder, or there's never a top of the mountain. So I kind of hear Ben talking to me quite a bit because, even though I'm really content with where I am, I do know that there is more of a climb ahead of me. There are a couple more rungs to that ladder to climb, but they're different now. They're not so much technique based or subject based. They're more about like longevity and retirement and, things after life, after photography. I'll probably shoot until the day I die. I'm sure they'll bury me with a camera. So I have no doubt that'll happen. But no, there's not too many things that I would want to shoot that I haven't shot. Again, mainly because family's like my number one focus right now.
Sure.
And then studio.
And it will be for a while, and it will be for a long while, for sure.
Yeah, for a long time it was photography first, like for as long as I can remember. Then when Stella Jean came along, it just kind of there's obviously things way more important than photography. That doesn't mean I'm not going to be the best photographer I can't be.
Sure.
Every time I go out and shoot. But no, it's like, I look at the work online occasionally. I don't spend too much time online looking at other people's work. I mainly just try to focus on, keeping our current clients happy and keeping them coming back and things like that. But yeah, I haven't done Instagram in forever, and it's because the studio has been ridiculously busy. Like, we have to hire an Instagram person.
Sure, sure.
Which is bad for it. I mean, I'd love to share the work. As soon as I can find some time to come up for air. And
that's a great place to be, though, honestly.
It's like we're getting ready to go to WPPI in a couple of weeks, and granted, I know how much money it's going to cost us to go by not shooting, by turning down business. But there just has to be a point where you'd say, okay, we're taking a break. We joke about it every time we plan a vacation. Like, more work than possible comes to the studio.
Right.
So I'm actually looking forward to not doing much of anything from like August 14th to the 20th, hanging out with some friends in Vegas.
You and I will probably be on the same judging panels together.
But yeah, it's no. I mean, again, I've been fortunate to photograph a lot of great things around the world. I have like some amazing memories of photographing certain individuals that I'll never forget. But no, I'm actually really happy with where I am.
Isn't it funny too how our best friends, the people that we are closest to and we love the most, are just like us, and we run with them, and we're all in this together. And I've got great neighbors, but they're not my people. Our photo people are at these shows, and that's why we have to go. You got to see our people.
Yeah, definitely.
You mentioned Ben. What a fabulous guy, and what a fabulous photographer he is.
Yeah.
And I was very pleased when I got invited to be a part of this Fuji creators team recently, within the last year. To find his name on the list, I just picked up the phone and called him, and we had the best conversation. I've been a big fan of what he's been up to for a long time, and that's what this is about too. We're all in this great, mutual admiration society. I just love to follow other photographers' work and see their successes. And I don't know that every walk of life we get to do that.
Yeah, I don't know about too many other professions that do that too. So like, I don't know like who my dentist finds inspiration from, so I think photography is like a really cool industry where, especially in this day and age where, even though we may be apart and not talk as much as we can still look at each other's imagery, and, you can kind of feel what it was like to be there or do that and be excited for your peers, even though you haven't talked to them or seen them in a while. And so I think that's the fun part about, occasionally jumping on Instagram and looking at things. But I think eventually I'd like to be more social. Is probably the best thing I could do.
Sure.
Is to get out there and interact with people more, with more photographers and things like that.
Yeah.
But no, right now, things are good.
Good. I would encourage people to look at your site. What is the best website? Is it
So we have a bunch of different websites. We're still trying
Which
to
is
kind of gather everything.
the one that's most impressive to me. Of course, you've got such great work everywhere, but your food stuff that I talked to you about that a couple of weeks back. The food stuff is so stellar.
No, thank you.
As a guy that shoots some food, I'm not that good at this stuff. You got to work hard at this stuff. It takes work and styling and the right food and the right client and the right everything. And you've got it down. You're really good at this.
No, thank you. Yeah, so it really comes down to, like, believe it or not, like the first thing you have to do is like put the camera in the right place. So if you don't have the right composition, there's really no point in going forward. So, we might spend the most amount of time actually getting the camera in the right place, getting the dish in the right place. Everything's done with a dummy dish as well. So, a plate will come out. It's the same plate, it's relatively some of the same food that's going to be in the shot. That will all be lit. All the testing will be done. And then a live dish will come out and we'll shoot it relatively quickly, because some dishes will hold, like a ceviche will hold for a really long time.
Yeah.
But some of the dishes with sauces will start to separate, and you have to shoot relatively quickly. But the thing about food is just not overthink it. You can either be big and soft and fill it, or you can be very high contrast and have multiple heads. So I have two different approaches to it. Just kind of depends on the client.
Yeah. And give us the website address.
So we have modernmadephotography.com. And then my editorial site is josephvictorstefanchik.com. And eventually everything will get under that umbrella of Modern Made Photography. It will be myself and Candace. So it'll be a portrait brand as well as editorial and commercial. And it's still, it's on it's live. It's we're constantly adding content to it, but we're still working with a lot of clients every year. So eventually we'll hopefully get that site to where it needs to be. But right now we have a really good, I would say things are working the way they should. I don't go around messing anything up, break anything.
I hope people, and I think probably this is a true statement. I think people can see the type of guy you are and the style of what's behind you and why you're so successful at this. You are one of those guys that, I got a nice pat on the back from a very well-known headshot photographer in Atlanta who said, "You taught me 20 years ago just to keep my head down and keep working." And you're a guy that's always just kept your head down. You've always just kept working. And I applaud the effort. The effort's fabulous. Thanks, is. And I'm a big fan and glad we're friends. I appreciate you taking this time tonight. This is big. And I will see you in 2 weeks in Las Vegas. Thanks, everybody, for being with us tonight. If you have questions, you can go on the sites and you can send us emails for either one of us, and we'll certainly get back to you. And we appreciate everybody taking a little bit of time. And hope you're enjoying this series. We're going to keep doing these for a while. We've got some more scheduled coming up, and you'll be seeing notices about these as we go along the way. But they're a lot of fun, and we get to meet interesting people like my brother JVS. Thank you again, buddy. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night. Thank you, Andrew, for being a part of this with us, and thanks everybody for showing up. Tony, thank you. Bill, Tanya, all of you guys. Thank you all so much. Have a great evening, everybody.